Hi everyone, this is Niall from windowsnoob.com, and today I wanted to talk to you about setting up SmoothWall as a router in your Hyper-V labs to provide internet into each of your labs. I use it for all of my labs, and yesterday I blogged about it. If you follow me on Twitter, there's my handle at @ncbrady. You'll see that I tweeted about it yesterday, and if you click on that, it brings you to the guide at windowsnoob.com. But I wanted to show you just how simple it is by doing a video, right? So actually, yesterday, for the purpose of the guide, I actually created a brand new SmoothWall. There it is. And as you can see, it's running. It is number 11, and it is part of this lab, which is my 11th lab. I have several labs, as you can see here, and pretty much each and every lab has its own SmoothWall, as you can also see. So what I'm going to do in this video is we're going to actually just power this one off, and we're going to delete it, and then we're going to recreate it. So I just want to show you just how easy it is. So let's delete the SmoothWall. There is now no internet going into that lab. And let's find where the VM was. Should be in here. There's the SmoothWall. Let's delete it. It's gone. Okay. So now SmoothWall is gone. Let's go through as if we were following the guide. Let's go ahead and create the SmoothWall. But before we do, let's look at my switches so that you understand it. Network switches in Hyper-V Manager. We've got this one here, which I created, called ICS for Internet Connection Sharing. And basically, it is connected to a physical network card, in this case, a USB wireless card, right? I could have connected it to some of the other things there, but in this case, I wanted it to connect to a USB wireless card. Also, I'm not sharing this NIC in any way with the management operating system, the host, because that can cause issues. Okay, so that is your ICS connection. It's internet into your SmoothWall, right? I also have a lab called number 11, which we just had a look at, and that's this one here. So here's the private virtual switch, which makes it a private network for lab 11, right? And that means that all machines within the number 11 lab should be using the number 11 network, as you can see here. They all are. And that means that they can all talk to each other. All the machines within the number 11 lab can talk to each other, and they can't talk to other labs, right? And I have a naming convention which I use in all my labs, and that is as follows in terms of IP addresses. So let's just log on to this one. And basically, it is, let's see, right. If the number of the lab is 11, then I use 11 in the IP address range. So 192.168. Whatever is the number of my lab, dot whatever you get from the DHCP server. So as this is lab number 11, we have 192.168.11. All right. And the DHCP server on the domain controller will hand out IP addresses. So let's get started with actually building the new SmoothWall, which I just deleted. And we'll do that using a PowerShell script. So let's start this one up. And it's as simple as this. Please enter the virtual machine name. So we'll call it #11 SmoothWall, right? Please enter the virtual switch name. It's #11. And it says that virtual switch name already exists. We'll use it rather than recreate it. Okay, good. And please enter the generation type. This is the generation type of virtual machine. Now, because it's Linux, the OS of SmoothWall, we need to use type 1, right? So that's what we're going to do. And off it goes ahead and creates that virtual machine, and that's now done. But there's a few more things we have to do. So let's go to Hyper-V Manager, which is here, and we should see SmoothWall. There it is. So let's go into the SmoothWall and just adjust a few things to make it ready for for use. So the first thing that I can point out is that it does not need 2 gigs of RAM. 256 is more than enough for SmoothWall. Believe it or not, that's all it needs. The next thing that we need to do is add a new legacy network adapter. The first one is the one that's connected to the lab in question, and this is lab number 11. But we're going to add a second legacy network adapter. So we go to Add Hardware and choose Legacy Network Adapter, click Add. This one is not connected, but we're going to connect it to the previously created network switch called ICS, which is our Internet Connection Sharing private network. So we click on that. And if I click Apply, we now have 2 legacy network adapters. One is connected internally to the #11 lab. The other one is connected to our internet IP address, right? What else? We also need to connect the SmoothWall ISO to our CD-ROM drive. So let's just browse to that. I downloaded it yesterday. There it is, Express 3.1-i586.iso. So do that and change the boot order so that it boots from the CD, like so. And let's go through powering on the SmoothWall and configuring it and seeing just how easy this is. Right, so off it goes. It shows you these options. We'll choose the first one. And this takes a little while. So what we're doing now is we're going to install SmoothWall, then we're going to configure it, then we're going to verify on the SmoothWall that it has internet, and then we're going to do whatever configurations we need to do on the lab in order to communicate with the SmoothWall. Right, so let's click OK and get started. So now it's going to erase the blank hard drive, and off we go. It says you're going to permanently erase. Yeah, that's no problem. Off we go. And this takes a couple of minutes, and it's very easy to do. I highly recommend SmoothWall because it's easy to set up, quick to use, doesn't use much resources, and you can have one SmoothWall per lab and be able to turn on or off the internet at will in each lab, and also route ports to individual IP addresses within each lab. So now it's telling you that it's successfully installed, and click OK to configure. So that's what we're going to do. So it says, do you want to restore the configuration? No, we don't. All right. So let's choose a keyboard layout, US, UTC time zone. And now let's give it a name. So we'll call it Smooth 11 in this case. And then click OK. The mouse does not work in this Linux machine, so you're going to have to press the Tab key to flip between choices. But there's not many choices normally, so it's easy to do. So I'm leaving it on half open. You can change it to open if you wish. Do not set it to closed because it's going to make things even harder for you to troubleshoot. Okay, click OK to continue. Now we've got network configuration type, which we need to set. By default, it's set to green, where red is modem or ISDN. That's not good enough. We need green plus red. So we click on that and choose green plus red. And that's what we want. Next, we have to do card assignments. We have 2 NICs, remember. One is connected to the internal lab, that's number 11, and the other one is connected to the internet, and that's the ICS. So we click on card assignments, and you see both of those NICs, network interfaces, are unset. So we click OK to assign them. Now, here's a little tip. You can see it says it's going to assign green, which is our lab color, to this MAC address. But how do you know which one is connected to which? So if you go into the virtual machines settings, and I apologize that scaling is totally off here, but let's try and do it anyway, and expand legacy network adapter and click on advanced features, and what you should see is the MAC address, and there it is. So that's how you see the MAC address of each of the NICs. Click on the plus, select advanced features, and there's the MAC address. So the MAC address of the first one ends with 65. So we go back here, you can see 65 is the green one, so that's good. And then we click OK, and then 66 is the red one, and that's fine too. Click OK. So now both of those are allocated under card assignments. Next, we have to choose address settings. So we click OK. Now, green is our internal lab, or number 11. So let's configure the IP address for that card. Now, by default, it's going to decide to use 192.168.0.1, but we're not going to use that. We are going to decide that our SmoothWall uses the same IP range, obviously, as our lab. So that's an 11. And I always end my smooth walls with a 199 in all my labs, so I know where which IP my smooth wall will correspond to. So in lab number 11, it will be 192.168.11.199. In lab number 9, it will be 192.168.9.199, and so on. So we can just click OK to that. And now we can configure the red interface, which is our internet connection. So we click OK. And it's set to static, and that's not good enough. I want it to be set to DHCP, so it's going to get an IP address from my internal my internal internet provider, right, which is another router in my house. So we'll click OK to that, and then we click Done. And at this point, you could go into DNS and gateway settings and configure primary DNS to point to Google or some other DNS provider if you need to do so, but I do not. So let's cancel out of that. And let's choose Done, right? So we do not need to configure the web proxy, ISDN, ADSL, or DHCP. We don't want to configure any of that in SmoothWall, so we just choose Finished. Now it's going to ask for a couple of passwords for some users, so let's fill them in. You'll see that the first user is called admin, and the admin user is the one that you use to access the web interface, which I'll show you later. Now you also need to enter a root password, and the root password is like the local administrator, and that's for CLI or command line access. So let's do that. Okay, so now we've entered the admin and root passwords, and setup is complete. It was that easy. So let's click OK to reboot, and the SmoothWall should reboot. Just press escape to that. It should reboot into the OS, and we should be presented with the logon prompt. So let's let it do that, and then we'll verify if things are working and if we have internet access to the SmoothWall before we try verifying if we've got internet access within our lab, right? So it's booting up, starting the Linux services. Starts up a few internal services, and there it is. Very quick, as you can see, and only 256 megs of RAM. So root is the user you need to log on to the client with. And then the password, super complicated password. So, and that's it. Now it is installed, and we can do things like ifconfig, which is similar to ipconfig, except it's ifconfig. And if I press enter, it'll just scroll past the screen and you won't really see what's happening. So if you want to understand how it works, there are two Ethernet adapters, ETH0 and ETH1. So if we do ifconfig ETH0, it will show you the IP address of that one. And that is basically the IP address that we configured for the SmoothWall itself, right? So that's the 192.168.11.199. Now, if we look at ETH1, you will see that that is 192.168.100.62. That is my internal provided internet IP address, right? It is, you could think of that as an external internet address, and it's obviously it's a different range to the other one, so they don't conflict with each other. But this is enough to provide internet to our lab. So let's now go to the lab and actually see, do we have internet? Oh, but before we do that, back to the SmoothWall, and let's just ping something. windowsnoob.com, and as you can see, it's pinging. That's a good sign. That means that we have internet on the SmoothWall, which proves that the legacy network adapter ICS is actually communicating with the internet, which is great. So now that we know that, it should be working. So let's go to a client, this one here. And that beautiful picture in the background is actually Victoria Falls in Africa. Okay, that was great. Let's log on again. RDP decided to die on me. Okay, so now we're connected to a client. And let's just try pinging something. Pinging an internet-based address. And as we can see, we're getting a reply. So what that means is that this computer is routing through the SmoothWall. So if we ping 192.168.11.199, you will see that we're getting an answer. That's the reply from the SmoothWall itself. And let me just show you how much fun this is and how easy it is. There's the SmoothWall. If I do this, save, you see it's stopped, it's off. And if I go back to the client now, this one, and try pinging the SmoothWall, obviously it's not going to get a reply because it's off. And if I try pinging the internet, that's not going to work either because we've just cut internet off to the lab. So let's power back on our SmoothWall. And now we have internet into our lab, as you can see. Fantastic. But we can take it one step further. We can now do things like configure ports within that SmoothWall. So to get to the SmoothWall, you put in the IP address of the SmoothWall itself, and you append a port to it. And the port is 441, as you see there. And what it will say is not secure. Don't worry about that. It's nothing to worry about. Click on Advanced and choose Continue. Okay? And when you do that, that will take you to the GUI configuration part of SmoothWall, which is very nice and easy enough to use. You've got lots of information in there. You've even got logs. So if you're trying to troubleshoot why something is failing, this is the place to start looking. All right. So what we want to do is configure a port to allow it open access to the internet. Right. So if we look at my lab, this lab is PKI based. And I have a web server there, and that web server is running on port 80. And that web server, I think, is, let's see, what is it? Let's figure it out here. If we ping it, we will find out. Ping web server. Okay, so it's 11.3. All right, so if we go to here and add port 80 and the destination IP, which is the web server right there, like so. And port 80, and we'll give it a comment, PKI CRL port 80. All right, click Add, and now that port is now open to the World Wide Web, which means that if we were to go to the issuing CA and perform use PKI view to verify things, everything should be fine and dandy. Should be. Remember, I just deleted the SmoothWall and recreated it. So let's just have a look for the laugh. Let's try this. Yes, it is. Okay. Which means it's connecting out to the internet and resolving to pki.windows-noob.com, right? Which is an actual internet address. Okay. So as you will see here. So if I do ping pki. Oh, what's happening? Ping pki.windows-noob.com, right? And that should resolve to an internet IP address, and it is. So that internet IP address, that internet address there, forwards port 80 to my SmoothWall, which is this box here, or more appropriately, this box here. And this little VM does port forwarding. So it forwards port 80 to the web server. And that means that this self-sufficient lab, number 11, works, and I can do port forwarding internally, which is fantastic. What else do I need to tell you? If you log on to the domain controller, it might be a good idea to configure some things. I'll show you. So, for example, open up the DHCP server and configure your scope options for your IP address range. So I've got an IP address range configured there, and it's from 11.20 to 11.200. Now, if we look at the scope options here, you will see that I've configured the router, which is option 003, to point to our SmoothWall, right? So how does that translate to the real world? Well, what it means is that if you have DHCP enabled and you have a DHCP scope set up, if I do this, ipconfig, you will see that I've got an IP address here, it's .23, and the default gateway for this computer is the SmoothWall. So if I do ipconfig release, I now have no IP, as you can see here, but if I renew, I should get probably the same IP if DHCP is working, and it is. So I've got the same IP and I've got that default gateway, and that default gateway is as configured in the scope option that I just showed you, 003. So with all those things in place, you do not need to add additional NICs to your domain controller. You do not need anything else other than a SmoothWall running, and it will do all the magic for you. The SmoothWall has two network interface cards, one connected internally to your lab. In this case, it's lab number 11, and the other is connected to your internet provider, in which case it is a Wi-Fi card. And that's it. That is all I wanted to show you in this video, just to show you exactly how easy and quick it is to set up a SmoothWall. We did all this in 22 minutes, and that was with me talking about it at the same time. So I hope you enjoyed it, and see you the next time. If you enjoyed this, please click subscribe. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.